Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the work of Robert Anton Wilson.
Okay.
And specifically, we're going to be looking at excerpts from his book, The New Inquisition.
Interesting.
So for those unfamiliar with Wilson, he was a really fascinating and controversial thinker who really pushed the boundaries of philosophy and psychology and how we understand reality itself.
Right.
And in this book, he tackles some pretty big questions about how we as humans form beliefs and perceive the world and maybe even shape it with our minds.
Interesting. So the New Inquisition.
The New Inquisition, yeah. What I think is so intriguing about this book is how Wilson blends these heady philosophical ideas with real-world examples.
Yeah.
He even delves into these strange, unexplained phenomena that challenge conventional thinking.
Exactly. And it's those strange cases, things like rains of coins, mysterious creatures, and even like spontaneous human combustion.
Oh, wow.
That really grabbed my attention.
I see, yeah.
It makes you wonder, are these just hoaxes?
Right.
Or is there something weirder going on?
Yeah, that's a good question.
But before we jump into all the truly bizarre stuff, I think it's worth starting with something we can all relate to.
Okay.
The limitations of our own perception.
Absolutely. That's crucial. That's a crucial foundation for understanding a lot of Wilson's work.
Yeah.
He argues that our perception isn't like a perfect mirror of reality. Instead, it's more like an active construction.
Okay.
It's shaped by our brains, our senses, and even our belief systems.
So it's like our brains are constantly editing reality.
Exactly.
Before we even get a chance to experience it firsthand.
Yeah. And Wilson uses this great analogy to illustrate this point.
Okay.
Referencing the work of R. Buckminster Fuller.
Oh, okay.
You know, the architect and futurist.
Yeah. So Fuller pointed out that human vision actually works like a camera lens. You know, inverting images on the retina. It's our brain that flips the image right side up, showing that what we see isn't simply a passive reflection of the world out there.
So there's already this layer of interpretation happening before we even consciously process what we're seeing.
Precisely. And to further demonstrate how easily our perceptions can be tricked, Wilson includes this classic optical illusion in the book. You've probably seen it before. Two lines of equal length, but one has outward-facing V shapes on the ends, and the other one has inward-facing Vs.
Oh, yeah, the one where the line with the outward-facing Vs looks longer.
Exactly.
Even though they're the same length. Yeah,
this illusion, it highlights how our brains interpret those shapes as extending the line.
Right.
It's simple, but it's a powerful reminder that what we see isn't always an accurate representation of reality.
It makes me wonder if something as basic as a line's length can be misjudged.
Yeah.
What else are we misinterpreting in our daily lives?
That's a question Wilson wants us to grapple with throughout the book.
Okay.
And this leads us to one of his most thought-provoking arguments. That all language, even scientific language, is fundamentally metaphorical.
Okay, so how does that challenge our understanding of truth or objectivity?
If language is metaphorical, it means our descriptions of reality are always interpretations, not direct reflections of some absolute truth.
Okay.
This directly challenges what Wilson calls scientific fundamentalism, which he sees as a form of New Inquisition.
New Inquisition. Okay, I'm intrigued, but also a little worried about where this is going.
Well, Wilson uses that term to describe any rigid belief system, whether it's scientific, religious, or political, that elevates itself to the status of unquestionable truth. He argues that blind faith in the pronouncements of authorities, without critical thinking and independent verification, can stifle progress and even lead to harmful outcomes.
So it's not about rejecting science or reason, but about recognizing their limitations and being cautious of any system that claims to hold absolute truth.
Exactly. It's about questioning assumptions, considering multiple perspectives, and being open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
So are you saying that everything is subjective?
It's not about abandoning the pursuit of truth entirely. It's more about recognizing the limitations of our models and metaphors.
All right.
We can still use science and reason, but we need to be aware that they're tools, not idols, just like that optical illusion.
Right.
We need to be mindful of the ways our brains might be tricking us.
Okay, I can see that, but I'm also thinking, if everything is relative, how do we even have a meaningful conversation?
That's where Wilson's critique of fundamentalist materialism comes in. He points out how even something as seemingly basic as matter is ultimately a concept, a way of organizing our perceptions, not some absolute building block of reality.
This reminds me of how the understanding of matter has changed so much over time.
Exactly.
From the ancient Greek elements to modern physics with quarks and leptons. It seems like what we call matter is constantly evolving.
Exactly. And this constant evolution highlights the limitations of clinging to any one definition as absolute truth.
Okay, so we've talked about perception, the metaphorical nature of language, and the dangers of blind faith. I'm ready for some real-world example.
Well, one of the most fascinating, and let's be honest, controversial figures that Wilson examines in the book is Dr. Wilhelm Reich.
Ah, yes, Dr. Reich.
Sure.
His work was certainly outside the mainstream for those who aren't familiar. Can you give us a quick overview of who he was and why his ideas were so contentious?
So Dr. Reich was initially a psychoanalyst, a student of Freud. But he eventually broke away and developed his own theories on what he called orgone energy.
Orgone energy.
Yeah, he believed orgone was this primordial cosmic energy that permeated everything. And was connected to both physical and mental health.
Orgone energy. That definitely sounds like something that would raise eyebrows in the scientific community.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of reception did his ideas get?
Intense skepticism, to say the least.
Okay.
His theories clashed with both Freudian psychoanalysis and the prevailing views of the scientific establishment. In fact, his work was ultimately deemed so threatening that it led to a rather shocking incident.
You're talking about the book burning, right?
Yes. In 1956, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration ordered the destruction of Reich's books and research materials.
Wow. So this was...
This act of government-sanctioned censorship, even though his ideas might have seemed outlandish to some, is a stark reminder of how easily dissenting viewpoints can be silenced.
And just to be clear, Wilson isn't necessarily defending Reich's theories themselves.
No.
He's more interested in using Reich's case as an example of what can happen when a rigid belief system, even one based on science, is used to suppress alternative ideas.
Precisely. And Wilson even contrasts Reich with Martin Gardner. You know, the well-known skeptic and critic of pseudoscience. Gardner was highly critical of Reich's orgone theories, but he also opposed the book burning, seeing it as a dangerous precedent.
Interesting. So even someone who disagreed vehemently with Reich's ideas still saw the value in protecting intellectual freedom and open debate.
Absolutely.
It seems like there's a lot to unpack there about the balance between skepticism and censorship.
Absolutely.
So Wilson uses Gardner's critique of Reich to introduce another key concept, the right man syndrome.
Right man syndrome.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So Gardner uses this term to describe the psychological phenomenon where people become so attached to their beliefs that they refuse to consider any evidence to the contrary.
Oh, wow.
He saw this in Reich's unwavering conviction in his orgone theories. Despite mounting criticism and a lack of empirical support.
So it's like once you've decided you're right about something, your mind becomes a fortress, impenetrable to any information that might challenge your view.
It's kind of scary.
Kind of scary when you think about it. It makes you wonder how many of us are truly immune to that kind of thinking.
That's exactly Wilson's point. We all have our blind spots, our cherished beliefs that we're reluctant to question.
Okay, so we've explored the limitations of perception, the dangers of rigid belief systems, and the case of Dr. Reich, which seems like a cautionary tale about the importance of intellectual humility.
Definitely.
But now I'm really curious about those stranger phenomena we mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Things like rains of coins, spontaneous combustion cases, even that mysterious Surrey Puma big cat terrorizing England.
This is where Wilson introduces a concept he calls the segregating whirlwind.
Segregating whirlwind. Okay, that sounds intense. What exactly does that mean?
So it's a powerful metaphor for how we perceive patterns and meaning, even in randomness and chaos.
Okay.
Imagine a whirlwind whipping through a junkyard, randomly picking up and dropping objects.
Right.
To an observer, it might seem like the whirlwind is intentionally selecting certain objects, creating a pattern.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's just the chaos of the whirlwind at work.
Interesting. So are you saying that these strange events...
Not necessarily. It's more about recognizing that our brains are incredibly good at finding patterns.
Okay.
We're constantly trying to create order and meaning, even in the face of randomness. We might see a pattern where there is none.
Okay.
Or we might misinterpret a genuine pattern because we're looking at it through the lens of our pre-existing beliefs.
So it's not about dismissing these strange events as impossible, but about being cautious about jumping to conclusions just because we think we see a pattern.
Exactly. And this ties back to Wilson's skepticism about absolute truth and certainty.
Okay.
He's arguing that the real new Inquisition isn't questioning the existing paradigm.
Right.
It's clinging to them with such ferocity that we shut out any possibility of the unknown.
So instead of getting stuck in rigid thinking, maybe we should embrace a little more uncertainty and be open to exploring ideas that might seem strange or even impossible at first glance.
Precisely. It's about cultivating intellectual humility.
Okay.
And recognizing that the universe is full of mysteries that we might never fully comprehend.
This has been a fascinating deep dive already.
It has.
And it seems like we're just scratching the surface of Wilson's ideas.
Indeed, there's much more to explore.
Yeah.
Especially as Wilson delves into the mind-bending implications of modern physics and how it challenges our understanding of space, time, and reality itself.
Oh, boy. I think I need to buckle up for that.
You might,
All right, let's take a quick break.
Sounds good.
And we'll be right back.
All right.
Okay, I'm still thinking about that segregating whirlwind analogy. It's like Wilson is saying that our brains are pattern-seeking machines, always trying to make sense of the world, even when we're faced with chaos or randomness. But doesn't that tendency to find patterns also sometimes lead us astray?
That's exactly what Wilson explores in his discussion of skepticism and blind faith.
Okay.
He argues that both extremes can be problematic.
Right.
On the one hand, you have blind skepticism.
Okay.
Where you dismiss anything that doesn't fit your pre-existing worldview.
Right.
That can shut you off from potentially valuable insights and discoveries.
Right. It's like having a filter that's so fine it blocks out everything.
Exactly.
Even the good stuff.
But on the other hand, blind faith, particularly when it's directed towards any system of thought, whether it's scientific, religious, or political, can make you vulnerable to manipulation and dogma.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between being open to new ideas without being gullible.
Exactly.
And how do we actually strike that balance?
That's a great question.
How do we cultivate healthy skepticism without falling into cynicism or nihilism?
Well, Wilson emphasizes the importance of critical thinking.
Okay.
And it's not just about questioning the things you disagree with. He encourages us to question everything, even our own deeply held beliefs.
So it's about constantly challenging our own assumptions, even if it makes us uncomfortable.
Exactly. He suggests that most of our knowledge is relative to our specific context and perspective.
Okay.
Remember that example he gives about water boiling at 100 degrees Celsius?
Yeah, he points out that it's only true at sea level.
Right.
If you're up in the mountains, water boils at a lower temperature.
Exactly.
Because of the lower air pressure.
Right.
It's a simple example, but it really highlights how even seemingly basic facts can change depending on the circumstances.
Precisely. And this principle applies to more complex ideas as well.
Okay.
What might be considered true in one culture or time period might be seen as completely false in another.
Yeah.
So it's not about abandoning truth altogether, but about recognizing that it can be fluid and context dependent.
I'm also thinking about how our individual experiences and biases shape what we perceive as true.
Right.
Two people can witness the same event and come away with completely different interpretations.
That's why Wilson stresses the importance of considering multiple perspectives.
Okay.
If we only ever listen to people who agree with us, we're never going to challenge our own biases and assumptions.
It's like we're trapped in echo chambers. Just hearing our own beliefs reflected back at us, even if they might be based on incomplete information.
Exactly.
Or faulty logic.
And that's a core part of what Wilson calls the New Inquisition.
Right.
This tendency to shut down dissenting viewpoints and cling to established dogmas, even when presented with evidence that challenges those beliefs.
You mentioned earlier that Wilson uses that term to critique both religious and scientific dogma. Could you give some specific examples of how this New Inquisition manifests in those different realms?
Certainly. In the realm of science, Wilson points to historical examples where groundbreaking ideas were initially met with resistance, ridicule, or even outright suppression, because they challenged the prevailing scientific paradigms of the time.
Right.
Think about Galileo's heliocentric model of the solar system.
Oh, yeah.
Which contradicted the church's geocentric view and led to his persecution.
And even today, scientists who propose radical new theories or challenge established paradigms often face an uphill battle for acceptance within the scientific community.
Exactly. And it's not that skepticism or peer review are bad things. Those are essential parts of the scientific process. But Wilson cautions against what he calls scientific fundamentalism. Where the defense of existing theories becomes more important than the pursuit of truth, wherever it may lead.
And on the religious side of things, I'm guessing the New Inquisition manifests as that kind of rigid fundamentalist thinking that rejects any questioning or interpretation of religious texts or doctrines.
Precisely. It's that unwavering adherence to a specific interpretation. Often coupled with the demonization of anyone who holds different beliefs that Wilson sees as problematic. He argues that this kind of dogmatic thinking can lead to intolerance, conflict, and even violence.
So if both blind faith and blind skepticism are pitfalls, what are some strategies for navigating this tricky terrain and cultivating genuine, healthy skepticism?
Wilson offers several suggestions. First, he encourages us to become aware of our own biases. We all have them, whether we're conscious of them or not. They are shaped by our upbringing, our culture, our personal experiences. Once we acknowledge those biases, we can start to see how they might be coloring our perceptions and judgments.
That's a good point. It's like realizing you've been wearing tinted glasses your whole life.
Exactly.
Suddenly you see the world in a whole new light.
Exactly. Another strategy Wilson recommends is to actively seek out information that challenges our beliefs. Don't just stay in your comfort zone. Consuming media or interacting with people who reinforce your existing worldview. Make a conscious effort to engage with different perspectives. Even if they make you uncomfortable.
It's like trying new foods. You might discover that something you thought you'd hate is actually delicious. Or at least you'll gain a better understanding of why other people enjoy it.
And finally, and perhaps most importantly, Wilson emphasizes the importance of being willing to change our minds.
Oh, wow.
Don't cling to a belief just because you've always held it. Be open to the possibility that you might be wrong. And be willing to adjust your thinking as you encounter new information.
That seems particularly challenging in today's world.
And I agree.
Where people are so entrenched in their beliefs. And it feels like everything is so polarized.
Definitely not easy, but it's essential for intellectual growth. And for a healthy society. It's about recognizing that knowledge is an ongoing process. A journey of discovery, not a destination.
So be aware of your biases, seek out opposing viewpoints, and be willing to change your mind.
Exactly.
That sounds like solid advice for anyone.
It is.
Regardless of their beliefs. But I'm curious, did Wilson offer any specific techniques?
He did.
For putting these ideas into practice? How do we actually break out of those echo chambers and engage with different perspectives in a meaningful way?
One technique he suggests is to imagine yourself arguing. For the opposite side of an issue you feel strongly about.
Interesting.
Really try to understand the strongest arguments in favor of that opposing viewpoint. This can help you identify weaknesses in your own thinking and develop a more nuanced understanding of the issue.
That's a great idea. It's like stepping outside of yourself and trying on a different perspective. Almost like an actor playing a role.
Another technique he recommends is to engage in respectful dialogue. With people who hold different views. Not with the goal of winning an argument or changing their minds.
Right.
But with the intention of genuinely understanding their perspective and where it comes from.
That sounds challenging.
It can be.
Especially in our current climate of social media shouting matches and political polarization.
It is, but
I can see how it would be incredibly valuable to be able to have those kinds of respectful, nuanced conversations.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that skepticism isn't about tearing things down.
Okay.
It's about seeking truth.
Right.
Even if that truth is uncomfortable or challenges our cherished beliefs.
That's a great point.
Wow.
It's about questioning the status quo. Not just to be contrary or argumentative, but to get a clear picture of reality and push our understanding forward.
Now, you mentioned earlier the dangers of cynicism and nihilism.
Right.
Those are real traps that people can fall into.
Yeah.
Especially when they're grappling with complex or unsettling information.
Right. I can see how questioning everything could lead to a sense of hopelessness or apathy.
Yeah.
Like, if there's no objective truth, what's the point of anything?
But Wilson believes that genuine skepticism is ultimately a hopeful pursuit.
Okay.
It's driven by a desire to understand the world and our place in it, even if that understanding is always evolving and incomplete.
Okay.
He sees cynicism as a kind of intellectual laziness. A way of shutting down curiosity and resigning oneself to a bleak worldview.
So instead of getting bogged down in despair, it's about embracing the mystery and the ongoing process of discovery.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that the universe is a vast and complex place. And we may never have all the answers.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we should stop asking questions and seeking knowledge.
Now, I know Wilson doesn't shy away from exploring unusual or even fringe topics.
He doesn't.
He mentions a number of cases in the New Inquisition where scientists or other thinkers were ostracized or even persecuted for challenging the prevailing dogmas of their time.
He discusses the case of Immanuel Velikovsky, for example.
Velikovsky.
He was a Russian-born independent scholar who challenged conventional views on ancient history and astronomy.
Velikovsky, his book Worlds in Collision was pretty controversial.
It was.
He proposed that catastrophic events like planets nearly colliding shaped human history and mythology.
Yes, his theories were definitely met with resistance from mainstream scientists.
Okay.
He suggested that Venus was originally a comet that was ejected from Jupiter and then had a series of close encounters with Earth, causing all sorts of upheaval, like floods, earthquakes, and even the parting of the Red Sea.
It's like something out of a disaster movie.
It is.
But even if his theories were ultimately proven incorrect, it seems like his work at least raised some interesting questions about the potential for catastrophic events.
To influence human history. And the limitations of relying solely on gradualist explanations.
Exactly. Whether or not his specific theories hold up, Velikovsky's work sparked important debates about the role of catastrophism in shaping our planet and the history of life on Earth.
So even if some of these unconventional thinkers turn out to be wrong, their willingness to challenge established paradigms can lead to new discoveries and expand our understanding of the universe.
Absolutely. And Wilson also discusses the work of Dr. Rupert Sheldrake,
a
biologist who proposed a concept called morphic resonance.
Morphic resonance, that's a new one for me. What's that all about?
So Sheldrake suggests that there are fields of information called morphic fields that influence the development and behavior of living organisms. He argues that these fields are shaped by past experiences.
Interesting.
And can be accessed by individuals through a kind of collective memory. So it's almost like saying that our thoughts and actions aren't just happening in isolation, but are actually shaping and being shaped by a kind of collective unconscious.
Exactly.
And that's a pretty mind-blowing idea.
It is. While Sheldrake's ideas haven't been widely accepted by mainstream science, they've sparked a lot of interest among those who are exploring alternative explanations for phenomena like animal instinct, collective behavior, and even ESP.
It seems like we're only just beginning to understand the true nature of consciousness and how it interacts with the world around us.
And that's a key part of what makes Wilson's work so fascinating. He's always pushing us to consider the possibility that there might be more to reality than we can currently perceive or measure.
Okay, so we've explored skepticism, blind faith, and some pretty unconventional thinkers.
Right.
But I know there's one more big area we need to cover.
Okay.
Wilson's exploration of space, time, and the implications of modern physics.
Ah, yes. This is where we delve into some seriously mind-bending territory.
Oh, boy.
Exploring the ideas of quantum mechanics.
Okay.
And how they challenge our everyday understanding of reality.
All right, lead the way. I'm ready to have my mind blown.
Let's do it.
All right, so we're about to venture into the realm of quantum mechanics. To be honest, I'm a bit intimidated. This is where things start to feel less like everyday reality and more like science fiction.
I understand the feeling. Quantum mechanics can definitely be mind-bending. It challenges a lot of our intuitive assumptions about how the world works.
Yeah.
But that's also what makes it so exciting.
So where do we even begin?
Well, Wilson starts by exploring the work of physicists like Niels Bohr and Erwin Schrödinger, who really revolutionized our understanding of the universe at the subatomic level. Their work suggests that reality, at its most fundamental level, is inherently uncertain and probabilistic.
Probabilistic? You mean like things aren't fixed and predictable?
Exactly. Unlike the classical Newtonian view, where objects have definite properties and follow predictable paths, quantum mechanics suggests that particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed.
Okay, so this is where Schrödinger's cat comes in, right? I feel like I've heard about that thought experiment a million times, but I'm still not sure I fully understand it.
It's definitely one of the most famous and perplexing concepts in quantum mechanics. To recap, you put a cat in a box with a device that has a 50-50 chance of releasing a deadly poison. Until you open the box and observe the cat, it's considered to be both alive and dead at the same time.
So the act of observation somehow determines the cat's fate. That seems a bit strange.
It does, doesn't it? But that's the essence of superposition, one of the key principles of quantum mechanics. It suggests that particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously, until an observation is made, forcing them to collapse into a single state.
So it's not just that we don't know whether the cat is alive or dead until we open the box, but that the cat is actually in both states at the same time.
Exactly. It's a difficult concept to wrap our heads around. But it's been experimentally validated time and again, and it raises some profound questions about the nature of reality and the role of observation.
It makes you wonder if the same principle applies to everything, not just cats in boxes.
That's a question that physicists and philosophers are still debating. Some argue that quantum phenomena are only relevant at the subatomic level, while others suggest they could have implications for our understanding of consciousness, free will, and even the structure of the universe itself.
Okay, my brain is starting to hurt a little, but I'm also incredibly intrigued. So if reality is this uncertain and probabilistic, how do we make sense of anything?
That's where Wilson brings in the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which is also sometimes called the Everett interpretation after physicist Hugh Everett III. This interpretation suggests that every time a quantum measurement is made, the universe branches into multiple parallel universes.
Wait, so you're saying that there could be an infinite number of universes, each representing a different outcome of every quantum event. So there could be a universe where Schrödinger's cat is alive and one where it's dead, and both universes are equally real.
Exactly. It's a mind-boggling idea, but it provides a way to resolve some of the paradoxes of quantum mechanics.
It also makes me wonder if there are infinite versions of myself out there, each living a slightly different life. It's a bit overwhelming to think about.
It certainly challenges our notions of identity and individuality, but it also ties into Wilson's core argument that there is no single objective reality. Instead, there might be a vast multitude of realities coexisting, each equally valid from its own perspective.
Okay, we've got Schrödinger's cat, parallel universes, and the idea that reality is fundamentally uncertain. I'm starting to see why people find quantum mechanics so mind-bending. But I'm curious, how does Wilson tie all of this back to his overall thesis about perception, belief, and the limitations of our understanding?
He argues that quantum mechanics provides a powerful metaphor for understanding the limitations of our own perception and the constructed nature of reality. Just as a particle can exist in multiple states until it's observed, our perception of the world is shaped by our expectations, beliefs, and the frameworks we use to make sense of our experiences.
So it's like our minds are collapsing the wave function of reality into a particular version based on our own subjective lens.
Exactly. And this brings us to one of Wilson's most thought-provoking concepts, what he calls symbion. It's a term he borrows from the Finnish language, which roughly translates to something like that.
Symbion. I like the sound of that. It sounds appropriately ambiguous for describing something as complex as reality. But how does he use this term in the context of quantum mechanics and perception?
He uses it to describe the way we perceive and understand the world, suggesting that our knowledge is always approximate, incomplete, and subject to interpretation. Just as quantum mechanics reveals the inherent uncertainty at the heart of reality, Sombiano emphasizes the limitations of our own models and the need to embrace uncertainty.
So instead of clinging to the illusion of certainty, we should be comfortable with saying it's something like that, acknowledging that our understanding of the world is always evolving, and that there might be aspects of reality that we can never fully grasp.
Precisely. It's about cultivating intellectual humility and being open to the possibility that our current understanding of the universe might be radically incomplete.
It's like that famous quote attributed to Socrates: "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing."
Exactly. Yeah. And that's perhaps the most valuable lesson we can take from Wilson's exploration of the New Inquisition. He encourages us to question our assumptions, embrace uncertainty, and be open to the possibility that the universe is far stranger and more wondrous than we can currently imagine.
This has been an incredible journey through some truly mind-expanding ideas. From the limits of perception to the mysteries of quantum mechanics, the New Inquisition really challenges us to think differently about the world and our place in it.
I agree. It's a book that invites us to become more conscious of the frameworks we use to understand reality, to cultivate a healthy skepticism toward all belief systems, and to embrace the ongoing process of discovery with a sense of wonder and open-mindedness.
Well said. And if you, dear listener, want to explore these ideas further and maybe have your mind blown a few more times, we highly encourage you to check out Robert Anton Wilson's The New Inquisition. It's a book that will stay with you long after you finish reading it, prompting you to question everything you thought you knew and to see the world with fresh eyes. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep embracing the mystery of it all.